also make project bags and notions and bins, and that's the mess behind me in my workspace. Today I'm going to make a pair of socks basically and show you guys how I do that. And Ryan here is going to man the chat. So if you guys have questions, write them down in the chat, or if you're not comfortable asking, um, yeah. So if there's any questions before I get started, I can answer them now. There's no questions. Okay. I will switch over to this and
So she has to do that, right?
yeah, yeah. So you can mute over here and then I will turn this on. There we
Okay.
go.
You spotlight Rachel's her phone in here. There we go.
Awesome. We might get a little peek of the dog, Merlin. He's always around. Um, my rug is blocking me from moving. So this machine here is in our nebula color, and it's my personal favorite. Okay. And right now I have the 72 slot cylinder on it. So these will be a pair of socks that would be suited for somebody with like a wider foot, like my husband. And I'm trying to decide which one I want to use. Do you want sparkly socks or do you want purplish socks? So this yarn is the West Yorkshire Spinners, and it works really, really well on our machine, and I really like it for that reason. And I'm going to. So I normally have our yarn mask set up, but it kind of gets in the way. So I'm not going to be using that today. But if you ever want to see videos of that in action, there's lots on our website and Instagram. And we all know Yarn Barf. Can you hold that, please? Thank you. I hold a little lamp. Well, so you can see me. You can see me in both areas. All right. Perfect. All right. So for this, just going to do a pair of semi high ankle socks. Because you don't really like wearing tall socks. And we'll be using a hung hem. I can just hear myself. You have to turn my audio. There we go. I had to mute in one area, otherwise I couldn't hear myself properly. So let me know if you can't hear me. So
you're fine.
Perfect. Okay, so these are a setup on it, and we use these to get our project started. I gotta find my magnet. There it is. So For this machine, the red marker is the beginning of our round. And I'll just get it on there and then I can adjust my tension. It's a lot of waiting and a lot of fiddly things like this before you get to do the fun stuff. Because cranking is the fun part. And so we do every other needle. We pop our medium weight in so that nothing pops off. And we'll just leave that on there for now. And I'll even take the row counter because we don't need the row counter right now because we're just starting out. And please ask questions. We love questions. These are.
I've gotten one, but Eureka already answered, just asking whether or not they're 3D printed.
Yes, they are 3D printed. Oh my goodness, what did I do there?
We do that right here in our house. What size foot sock will the 72 needle cylinder make?
Hold on. It does not like tension. This will make, it's not the length, it's the width. So you would calculate the size of your cylinder that you need based on the width of the foot that you're doing. So if you have a really wide foot, but you're not, you don't have a long foot, then you still might need to use a 72 needle cylinder. I have fairly wide feet and use 72 sometimes, depending on the type of gauge I want for that sock. For myself, I typically use the 64 though. I know there's always a little bit of controversy with 3D printed products because they don't last as long as some things. But these are really a nice way to get into a CSM knitting and also to not overextend your budget while doing it because not everybody is production making socks. So it's easier to get started and find out whether or not you like it because I know that I didn't want to spend thousands of dollars on a product for it to not work out.
Well, also the parts that do wear out, we haven't really had any people saying anything has been wearing out, and your parts haven't been wearing out either. But if they do, we've designed it so that they are fairly easy to replace just the part that would wear out without replacing the entire machine. Because they're still a current product, it's not a big deal for us to make those parts or send them out. Whereas with the antique machines, you might have to find a specialist just to get the part made for you.
They're a little bit harder. They do last longer because they're metal, which I totally see that. I one day would love to have.
We have other questions. So about the 72 needle, she's asking if it's 10.5 or larger.
So it's not the width of the foot. Your gauge determines like the size of the cylinder determines the width of your sock. So if you can adjust the gauge and that just tightens your stitches and it'll make it narrower or wider. Someone's
asking what kind of colors do come in.
Ooh, lots of colors. I love trying new colors. So if you go on our website, you can see all the colors that we have right now.
It's not as simple as saying like red or blue because they're metallics and special shades of things.
and glitter, sparkles. Um, yeah, yes and no. I would say that the gauge, so that's like your metallic green.
So we can't just say green because it's kind of got a shimmer to it. There's another different kind of green. Where's the camera? Here, you do that.
It's right here. This is like a turquoise color. Um, so the question was about the needle sizes in comparison to well, that's the color that I'm using right now. So
Yeah, can you show how it's got sparkles? I can't.
yeah. So I don't know if you can see it under the camera, but there's some sparkle there.
Yeah, that camera's not showing it the best, but
Yeah, it's hard to show.
they're on the website.
So in comparison to hand knitting versus machine knitting is, I would say they're very comparable if you have the right gauge, but I do find that it tends to be a little bit looser. So I typically knit socks with a 64 or a 68, and that makes a fairly tight sock for myself. But when I use a 64 on the machine, it's not as tight. It's a little bit loftier, which is nice and has a little bit more stretch. But every machine is, I guess I wouldn't say every machine is different, but everybody knits and cranks in their own way. So you will find that sweet spot that you like.
So the same person who asked about colors is asking what cylinder sizes there are and what comes with the machine. You get a choice.
A choice in color.
No, what cylinder sizes are there?
So we have 48 to 72. And if you need a custom size, you let me know. And Ryan here will make a custom size. We did a 68 for somebody. If you need a left-handed machine, because these are right-handed machines, you let us know. We can actually swap it and make it mirrored so you can have a left-handed machine. So we did try going, this is a 72, so this is the max size that I've made. And the biggest issue with going up is that the gap between the needles gets more narrow and it creates a lot more stress and tension, and we find that it just doesn't knit as smoothly. So 72 is the largest we have. 48 is the smallest because it starts to stretch out too much and it doesn't create a really good tension, to be honest.
And then which ones come with the machine? You get three with the machine and you get a choice from any of the sizes available.
Yeah. I want to try and get this.
Can you repeat that, Ryan?
Yeah, okay, I drafted that.
I'm put in a little bit of extra weight. When you drop a stitch or it doesn't knit, it's just sometimes when I'm not paying attention, it'll. So the machine comes with a tool bag and it comes with a loom hook, or I guess a loom pick, a crochet hook. It comes with a dual-sided latch hook, a needle lifter,
Any of these,
pen, retractable measuring tape. I'm going through the list in my head.
okay, so now I need a crochet hook.
Can you get me the spool of nylon thread? There's a yellow one right there. Thank you. I'm just gonna. Oh, I had some over here. Okay, I'm just gonna let that go. All right, so I've cast on my waste yarn and I'm going to switch to the ravel cord, which will separate my waste yarn from my working yarn, which will become our sock. My sweater keeps getting caught in the needle, so definitely don't wear knitted sweaters. It'll get tangled on it. So we do one row of that, and then we put the tail end in there. And then we can cast on our working yarn.
Someone's asking if a 56 stitch sock will be done at a looser gauge.
I'm trying to understand what you mean. I have missed the context. Okay, yeah. So we have a 54 cylinder. So you would potentially do a 54 cylinder and then adjust the gauge, or you could do a 60 and adjust the gauge. Or if you really want a 56 cylinder, then you just let me know and we can print you a 56 cylinder. So we're going to do the cuff of this sock. And I like to do 30 rows because I like a nice hung hem. So it might be loud, but it's just because you're right here. Oh, my tension's too tight. So when your tension is too tight, your cams are high, and you can just lower them and that makes them looser, but it'll start popping off of the cylinder because there's not enough downward pressure because the yarn's too tight to pull down and it's too little weight to counteract that tension. So oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that. So one of the things that people who start off, I noticed, and I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but something they don't know is that they hold the yarn here. They think that the tension comes from here, but it doesn't. Your tension comes from the weight pushing down and the cams, which push the needles down to knit. So there should be no tension on your yarn over here, which is why a lot of people like to use cones or to pull off of a yarn cake, because if it snags it will cause tension issues. Yeah, tangle this one. It's not like this yarn today. My table's a little wobbly, so I apologize. And it's funny because I cranked a whole set of socks for my mom, and not once did I have a drop stitch. I didn't have any issues, and of course, today we're dropping all of the stitches.
You find it's the sort of thing where slow and steady helps avoid that, just speed affect that?
Yeah, because sometimes the machine will move. If there's any movement, it can cause the weight to shift. And if the weight comes up while you're cranking, it can cause it to slip the stitches. But sometimes it's just the way it's sitting in there. I don't know why it's doing it. Sometimes it's getting caught on something underneath. It's not embarrassing at all. It's like a naughty child in the grocery store right now. I'm just gonna. It's not a question, I think.
Yes, so she was asking if I knit 60 stitch socks, what size would I be looking?
I would recommend that you get the most common sizes that we sell, I would say, are the 60, 64, and the 72.
Yeah, 60 is one of the options, so
Yeah.
you don't have to go up or down from there. You can just get it.
I know, right, Eureka? It was so embarrassing. I was at a show in June, and the same thing happened. It just kept slipping stitches, and I don't know why, but it's very frustrating. I'm determined to get it past this little point. Sometimes when it's just starting out, the weight pushes against the side of the cylinder, and then it prevents it from sliding down enough. I think that's, there you go. I'm not going to jinx myself.
The reason you have to keep stopping it is because you have it.
Yeah, I have it. I'm pulling it out of the ball, so that's why I'm stopping. Because if I pull while I'm cranking, I'll tug on the yarn in here, and it can cause it to slip, and I don't like that. And we're almost at 30. All right. So I try to always stop before the main mark right here gets to the top of the first cam on the right, so that I can lift everything up. So we're done the cuff. I just have to pull up the hem, and what I love about using the ravel or the ripcord is that it gives me a clear mark separating my working yarn and the waste yarn, so I can just pull those stitches onto the needles, and I don't have to worry about second guessing myself. I should have used a smaller cylinder because it uses less needles and it takes less time, but this is what I had on. Because I was, you can make actually more than just socks on our machines. You can make in the bigger cylinder, if you use a looser tension, you can get quite a wide tube. I've seen people make headbands. I've seen mittens and fingerless mittens, arm warmers, leg warmers. I have one lady who makes pumpkins. And this year for a Christmas market that I'm doing, I'm going to try and make some Christmas ornaments where you just knit small amounts of yarn and like in little tubes, and then make Christmas ornaments in them. You put the Christmas ornament inside of it. It's the one part that I find very boring. I like cranking. I find hanging hems boring. I apologize if you hear a noise in the background. I've got a dog and a teenager, and they all want my attention when I'm busy. All right. So we get the main mark past the other cam, and then I can continue lifting those stitches up. And I know that some of you guys were asking about colors. We're always adding new colors as they as new colors are being released. And so if there's something that you are really hoping for, that one's not working very well either, then please let me know, because I'm always excited to try new colors, much to Ryan's frustration, because new colors means I have to test them, but it's always fun.
we were all having meals together, and we didn't really do chores. While the girl's mom resumed her real estate business, Ryan worked as
Ryan, why don't you
accountant.
tell them how this all got started, because
There was a lot.
it was kind of your fault that we did this.
So maybe I
I
was
guess it was my fault, but we had actually found a free model online to print your own machine that somebody had shared, and Rachel was
After
very excited to try it out.
because I really wanted a CSM, and I had gotten the go ahead to go look for one until we saw the price tag that it was like $2,500, and Ryan immediately said, "No way, that's too expensive. So let's find a cheaper option that's more affordable." And yeah.
Yeah, so she found one online that we could print ourselves for free. Somebody else had already designed it, so we very excitedly printed it, put it together, and then over the next week, Rachel tried using it from the other room across from me working in my office, and I would just hear swearing and things banging and a lot of unpleasant sounds until eventually we decided maybe we should try tweaking the machine to make it better, which that kind of went down the rabbit hole and ended up redesigning the entire thing from scratch, incorporating a million ideas where I thought this could be better in this way, or it could be more maintainable in another way, or if there's one part of it breaks, it'd be nice to be able to replace it without reprinting the entire machine.
So something that I can show you guys while I'm doing this part is that a lot of machines, if you get like a jam, for example, if I'm cranking and a needle gets twisted, you would have to take your project off of your machine, and then you'd have to take the cylinder out by removing the bottom gear, and then take your cams out, take everything out so that you can fix the jam. But ours allows you to I'm not actually turning a heel, so I don't need the secondary cam, but I can take the cam out, and I can take my row counter out. I can take this out. Everything is replaceable. One, because it's easier to print, but two, if it breaks, I want you guys to be able to replace your parts. So, but with that being said, we have finished hanging our hem, and so now all we have to do is crank our legs rows. And I know that Ryan doesn't really like his socks really high, so I'm only going to crank about 40 rows, and then I will start turning a heel. So I'm going to crank those rows right now. And I took out the other cam because when you're doing a straight tube, you don't need the cam on this side. It's because you're just knitting on this side over here. But I will put it back in so that I can knit the heel.
That's a unique feature of ours too, because if you take out that other cam when you don't need it, it makes cranking easier.
Yeah, there's less friction on the needle. Wow. Yeah. No. I was going a little too fast. There is a built-in counter right here, and there's a magnet underneath, and this part goes down straight down, and when the magnet passes, it counts the row. So yes, we're knitting over here, but our counter is over here. Actually, catches. We also have holes and a magnet here for needles and for tools. We have actually Ryan designed this. It's a cable cuff. So we can cinch it and pull that weight up so that it can distribute the weight more easily. Sometimes you gotta get it in there. I think I'm gonna regret moving that. There we go. It was hard to get that one in. All right, so I'm at 30 rows. I got 10 more. My little helper here. At 40. So we're done our 40 leg rows, and so now I'm gonna move. They're printed to order. All of them are now. We used to print for stock, and then we realized that it was overwhelming to keep stock of everything in. So,
Especially with so many color options, we would have the wrong colors in stock all
yeah,
the time, and then people wouldn't be able to order the one they wanted.
yeah. The amount of emails I would get saying, when is this turnaround time is about 2 weeks. We've got quite a few orders right now sitting, waiting, because I do by myself. So, it's a little overwhelming. So 2 weeks is usually how long it takes for me to get everything out. Okay, so we've lifted these needles out of work because this is going to be the top of our sock. This is going to become our heel.
Two more features that we can mention right now with the needles and the way they work on our cylinders too is
Hold on a second. I forgot to put the cam back in. I'm going to do that right now. I'm just going to squeeze it in there. That was my own stupid mistake. But
with the other machines we had tried,
I wouldn't have been able to do this.
wouldn't have been able to do that. But also the needles, when you raise them like this, on our machine they stay up nicely. They're kind of hard to push down by accident. On an earlier version of our machine, that was something we had some trouble with, and on the other machines we tried, it was really easy for the needles to fall back down. So we improved that. And when you pull the cylinder out on all the other machines we've tested, all the needles can fall out completely all over the place. So we've designed our cylinders to hold them. So no matter what you're doing, you're not going to drop 60 needles on the floor and play a game of pick up 60.
Yes. Actually, if you want to grab one of our cylinders, there's one up there. We can show you. But so I'm ready to turn the heel. So we're going to just do a wrap and turn, just a basic V-shaped heel. This is what the bottom of our cylinder looks like right here. So the needles rest on this little lip right here. And so when you lift your cylinder out, your needles will stay in. Okay. So I'm going to lift and then do a row, and then whatever side the yarn is on, like right here, is the side that I'm going to lift. So, and then I'll go down to these 2 target marks, because these will be unworked stitches for the heel, and these will become the gusset. Before I go too much further, I know some people will insist on using heel forks or a sweet spot in order to turn a heel. I'm going to do this without either of those to show you guys that it is possible to turn a heel without additional accessories, and that with just the soft weights that you can purchase, that you can still turn a heel. So. And the only time I hold any tension on the machine is during this stage right here, because if I don't, the yarn will get all looped up and tangled. So we just gently guide that back out, and then we let go when it catches and starts knitting again. And then I notice that the yarn is getting higher up on the needle, so that you got to push it down and then distribute that weight. Notice that this one here did not knit. So I'm going to complete that one. Now I normally go a lot faster than this, but I'm slowing it down for you guys. It's easier to watch. Oh, excuse me. Everything is getting caught and knit. What? Usually if it's not knitting on a heel turn like this, it just means that I need more weight. And this is where all the little extra weights come in handy because I can easily redistribute that weight to make sure that there's more pressure on this spot because this is longer than this. What is happening? I think it's pushing it out. All right. Let's light that up. Yeah, that's better. All right, almost done the first half. Oh,
You're just not looking when you go back there, right?
all right.
When you're pulling that one up, they're always kind of out. So you
Yeah, that's okay though.
gotta tuck it back in.
This part of the wrap and turn is definitely shenanigan free. However, the other half is got the shenanigans, which I don't like. How long does it take to get comfortable with the machine? Honestly, it depends on how comfortable you are in general with knitting machines. If you have any experience loom knitting in general. I've had people get it right away. I've seen people, it takes weeks and months. I would say it took me about 6 months to get to where I am right now, where I'm comfortable enough to experiment with things and techniques that I've never done before. But everybody's different. Whereas like Ryan's never played with it at all. He's not comfortable. He's never gotten comfortable with it. So I'm working on it though.
I just like to make changes if you request them. I'm not really a user of our own product, to be honest. I watch her use it and then take her input.
I can see it. I have some videos on YouTube, but because I'm a one-woman show and I'm doing all of this on my own, I don't have a ton of time to film tutorials, unfortunately. There we go. I would say though, almost all machines, the techniques and stuff, as long as you spatially can move things around in your head. So like if someone says, oh, 12 o'clock's here, but really your 12 o'clock is actually here, and you just kind of adjust it in your head as to where things are, then you could pretty much use any tutorial out there. This technique of turning a heel, I learned from somebody who was using a vintage gear. I think that's how you pronounce it. And So I adapted it to use on my machine. On the older machines, you don't have to lift your yarn over the latches, whereas on our machine you have to, because the cylinder and the needles come to the cams, not the cams come to the needles. So that particular style, that this is just how they how you do it. So we're done the first half of the heel. So now we're going to finish turning the heel, and that requires, I liked wrapping the yarn around the back of the first two needles to make it prevent any holes. And then you have to pull that yarn, those loops that you knitted, over top of the latches. And it's kind of crummy, but it's you get used to doing it. And then you close the row, and then you do two on the other side. Row, making sure everything is hot and tucked in. All right. Gotta get that really good and stuck in there. All right. Now we just do this with the next needle, and we just keep doing that all the way around, one needle at a time, until we get back to the very beginning.
What you said interesting earlier was interesting and worth mentioning, the tutorials for other machines. Like you said, they do work on our machine, but everything's at a different angle on our machine because instead of having the feeder right at the end and the handle somewhere else, we kind of move things around to be more ergonomic.
Yeah, I wanted it so that I didn't have to sit straight on the machine. I like to crank on an angle. Naturally, my hand is here and the other one is here, so that it was more comfortable for me to sit, because you do sit at the machines for quite a long time. So it's just what I found most comfortable, and so far there hasn't been any complaints that I'm aware of.
The handle's at an angle where you're not going to hit your hand off the table every crank, and your feet isn't right in the middle of your chest or anything. It's off to the side.
I lost the stitch. Okay, I'm frustrated now. Okay, give me 1 second. I gotta fix this. This is not something that happens often. This is because I'm being stubborn. So I'm gonna switch to using a sweet spot because I'd like to get this to actually finish. The sweet spot is a V-hook, and then you stick it on your targets or near your targets, and that just adds weight to the flap or the heel that's being knit.
So you were having trouble getting the weight exactly where you needed it?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that when I'm doing it. It is possible to do it without additional weights. I've done it. I've been avoiding using my sweet spot for that reason, but today it is not having it. This style of turning a heel I like because I never have to question where I'm at. I've seen some where you lift one and drop two, or drop two, lift two and drop one, and I found them so confusing because I couldn't walk away from turning a heel in those ones. Whereas this one, whatever side my working yarn on is where I left off. Like, I know that I left off right here because this is my working yarn. So I can just continue putting the yarn around and then bringing that needle down, and then
It wasn't up all the way. was gonna say something, but I thought we said
Sometimes I don't notice until it's already too late. This is a really good example of all the things that could go wrong, and how our machine allows you to fix these mistakes without having to start over again. Because I would have had to start over again on other machines.
and that would have caused all the huffing and gruffing in the other room that would drive me nuts.
So this needle and this needle,
They got pushed down during all the
yeah, they weren't supposed to go down. They were supposed to stay up. How many should I have out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, 9. So this one and that one. I'm just looking on double checking to make sure. No, they're not supposed to be down. They're supposed to be up.
Yeah, it was the simple last one we got.
Yeah.
We got
And now I can just
like that.
now I can just put it back. I'll figure it out. That allows me to fix mistakes without having to start over again, because that would have really upset me to have to start all over again. And we all know how much we hate frogging projects. Got to make sure that our latch is open to catch that yarn. There. Yay. All right, now I get the feeling like I probably messed that up. I have lots of wonky socks. So the next part after we finish the heel is knitting the foot. And that's where a lot of math comes in, because you need to know the gauge of your yarn. Now, I did not gauge swatch before I did this because I used this yarn many times, so I know it's gauged. And with the same tension settings, your gauge should be about the same on every cylinder, which is really handy. And what you do is you take the length. There's actually a chart over there somewhere. You take the length of your foot, you subtract 3 inches, because you need about 1.5 inches for your toe and 1.5 inches for your heel. And then you multiply that number by the amount of rows that you have in your gauge. No, because there's all this stuff written on it. So, I believe this one is 10 rows per inch. So how many are you?
I don't know. I have no clue.
Can you grab a measuring tape and measure your feet so I make sure I give you the right length? There's one over there. So on our website, we have a free sock sizing worksheet that you guys can download. And that kind of helps. I have to actually edit it because it says -4, but it's supposed to say -3. The length of your foot from toe to heel.
Inches.
Yes, please.
Not properly.
Okay, so Ryan's feet are 10.5 inches long, so then we would subtract 3 inches.
7.5.
So 7.5 times 10 is 75. So for his feet, we'll roughly do about 75 rows. And when I say roughly, if you accidentally do an extra row or, forget a row or miscount by a row or two, it's not the end of the world because the yarn is stretchy. So this is where I messed up, and I'm going to admit my mistake. Right. When you finish turning your heel, you should complete your last like dropping of your needle as you're cranking forward. And as you can see, I have one more up here still. And unfortunately, that is because I miscounted how many were up when I messed up previous. So I'll just drop that, pretend it never happened. And so now we have to drop all of these needles down into work, and then we can put our row counter back in, and then we can crank our foot rows. I'm closing the blind over there. It's sun is very warm. I know it feels like it's taking a really long time to make one sock, but I can tell you for myself, I can crank a pair of socks, like a pair both, within about 45 minutes. So it is possible to do a pair of socks in less than an hour. Slow poke today. So we reset our row counter, and now we're going to crank 75 foot rows. I'm laughing at this now. And this is only because I have the heel spring or the heel forks on, and the weight is wonkily distributed because I forgot. So just give me a second and I'm gonna fix this.
You just needed to take it off so the weight was in the middle again.
Yeah, so there wasn't enough weight on the back end of it.
I would say watching you learn how to do this from a year or two ago to now, it's all about the weight and catching when you need to move the weights or pull them up or put more on. That seems to be the biggest thing, the biggest part of the learning curve.
And the cam positions too, to make sure, I find that I would say over half of the messages and emails that I get from customers that are saying, it's not working, it's not working. It's because they'll send me a photo. Yeah, it is. But I also listen to books and do it at the same time. So it's, I also have a dog and a child and a cat that have all been harassing me.
The chat probably won't be any later, so people are watching.
So I'm just going to redistribute the weight. See if I can get that to work a little bit better. I'm going to stick the little one there and then there. Made it 41 rows before the weight all got messed up again. Um,
So how many rows would you usually go before you move the weights around normally?
it depends on the yarn. Some yarn is a lot more stretchy and it needs to be distributed a little bit more frequently because of it. And then other times, this is a more stiff yarn, so I try not to move the weight around too much because of that. Um, At least I can show the good, bad, and the ugly. Even when it messes up, it's still easy to fix. Nothing is permanent. So it's also hard because of the heel. So I can now move my cable clamp up a little bit, and that will cinch it up, and that'll fix the issue. Another thing that you have to remember is when you lift the weights out, you have to hold down underneath on what's down here and lift it up, because otherwise it pulls everything up with it and then you might lose your project. So it's another tip.
Second you look away.
I know.
It's bad luck, you can't look away.
I find that if I stare at it while it's spinning, it makes me dizzy.
Fine.
There you go, ladies. You can hypnotize your partners into buying you more yarn by using my machine. Get what you want. Just break a pair of socks in front of them and just make sure it's like black and white self-striping yarn, and then you're good to go. We're almost there. We're at 67 rows. I'm just trying to be really cute. I haven't used this colorway before. I am located in Parry Sound, Ontario. It's a little small town that's about an hour south of Sudbury and a couple hours north of Toronto. Ooh, that's a really good question. My favorite yarn. Mm, I did a dumb thing. My favorite yarn. I really love Long Dog yarn. I love her stuff. Malabrigo's sock yarn. I love Sweet Georgia. I really love her stuff too. And those are just like my personal favorites. I have cranked some Madeline Tosh on it and some hedgehog fiber. I kind of went through this phase where I went and I ordered all the yarns that I thought would be really fun to try and see how they perform on my machine. And It's the best decision I ever made because I got to try so many different brands. I have a basket full of yarns that I have not finished using, so who knows? I might find more. I have been blogging. I know. I have been blogging some of them that I've been using, so you're always welcome to check that out on the website. So I'm ready to do the toe, and I do the toe exactly like I do the heel. And then we close it up with a Kitchener stitch, which I will admit, I only learned how to do that this year. So don't be embarrassed if you don't know how to do a Kitchener stitch because I did not know how to do it either. Much. Let me take my row counter out because when I am turning, need it. All the way up. Put in our weight for our sweet spot. Put in that. And then we can start turning the wheel. So the toe. The first stitch didn't get caught, so it dropped it. I'm telling you, I'm cursed today.
Find that stuff with the little tinsely, sparkly effect in it looks different.
Not usually. I think it's more of the base. So something coarser like a Corriedale or like that would be a little bit harder to crank, but I've used all of them before without issue. So I think this one is just more difficult because I don't use the 72 cylinder as much. And I find that sometimes it can distribute the stitches differently. There we go. All fixed. Only because again, there's more stitches on the cylinder and it can be a little more finicky, but that's just me. I know lots of people who use them and have no problems. All right.
I saw that needle was pushed down, but you didn't push it all the way down or all the way up.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what it was supposed to be. I think you just distracted.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few times where I went to reach out. I thought by the time I pointed out, it's gonna be way too late.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a good example of even somebody who's been doing this for a while can still make mistakes. Okay. Stop being bad.
I'll try to show it next time.
Sometimes when I'm filming something, I won't even see it.
But it's like when you were pulling up the needle, sometimes you don't quite pull it up all the way.
Well,
Like
this
right
one,
there, not up all the way.
no, I know. But this one here, I've missed like 3 of them.
But you haven't been pulling them up all the way quite a
So
bit.
we're just gonna pretend that I've done it.
Right there would be it again.
But it gets caught.
Yeah.
So one thing I love about knitting and machine knitting is that there are no rules. And so if you don't lift the needle on one side, you just do it on the next row. It's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to make myself feel better because I'm messing up and I don't normally mess up on video. This is being recorded and it's going to be on YouTube and everyone's going to see it forever. another one up over here because I should have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're back on. Move that weight. All right. Now I'm gonna do the last of this turn, and then I can show you guys how to cast off, and then we'll be almost, well, then we'll be done because my time is almost up. Making sure all of my needles are still up where they need to be. And again, we're doing this exactly the same as what we would do for a regular heel. So we wrap the last for the first 2 needles, and then we knit those. And then we wrap on the other side. So what we do on one side, we do on the other. Make sure those loops are on top of the latches. And we curse a little bit because you didn't move your thing enough. There, okay. Now we can move on to, and then the rest of them you just do one at a time. All right, we're almost done. Oh, that's nice. Miscounted again, so I'm gonna drop this one over here because it shouldn't have been up, but when I got all mixed up. No. You know how there's that boyfriend sweater curse? It's like these socks are for you and they're cursed. Fix that. That back on there. Yeah. Okay, so now we put all of these needles back into work, but we're not going to keep knitting. We're going to get to here, and then we're going to cut the yarn, switch to a ravel cord, do waste yarn, and then we'll just drop it from the machine, and then it'll be done, and I can show you guys how it turned out. So just give me 1 minute, and if you guys have any more questions, now is the time, because I know that our time slot is almost done, or I'm over time. I think I am. Could you find me the end to that yarn right there? No. Mm-hmm. All right, so yes, I am almost done. All right, so we're just gonna go to here and then because that's where we're gonna graft our toe, which we won't be doing because it's picture stitching. Just make sure when you trim, you cut enough yarn for that. Now we lift that up, tuck that in there. Leave some space there for. All right, now we put in our ravel cord. It's about to be long enough.
Do you do adjust your weights or anything?
Nope. I'm just repeating because I want to save time.
Now 2 needles got pushed down, does that matter?
No, that doesn't matter because it'll get caught on the cam. All right, now I can it's gonna feel a little funny because we're gonna take out weight if I can come out. Stay there. We had 2 drop of stitches. Give me 1 second. It's gonna... Sorry, guys. Feel bad. is fixed. Usually at heels, toes, and cast off is usually when I'm more likely to lose something. So. Um, I'm not even gonna bother fixing that. Put an extra weight on it. Yeah, Molly. Right, this is my favorite part, is I'm out of yarn. We're done. Put my hand underneath the machine. And it took way longer than it should have. So at the end, what we do is a ravel cord and then waste yarn. So this is what it looks like. So if you want to switch to the other camera, I'm done with the machine. Can you do that? Can you switch back to Ryan, Eureka? Perfect. Okay. So I gotta unmute myself over here. Okay, perfect. So can you deal with that?
You just pass it to me.
No. So this is what it looks like when it's done. So here's your setup on it. Waste yarn, the ravel cord, your sock, and then at the very end, there's the ravel cord and waste yarn. And what you do is you fold it all in, and then you would Kitchener stitch it closed. But this is what it looks like done. And then that would be sewn closed. I'm actually wearing a pair of socks that I made. And so this is what the toe would look like at the very end. It's seamless if you can do a Kitchener stitch. This is a full length, so it ends up looking like a sock. And yeah, it would have been a lot faster if I didn't have so many hiccups. It's not something that normally happens. But thanks for sticking it out with me. Yeah, so when we put in the ravel cord, it's to separate the waste yarn from your project. So you can better see the stitches. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm hoping someone will watch this back and go, oh, that's how you fix it. But it makes it so that you can see the project stitching so that you can graft it together more easily. I would make Ryan try them on, but I am very confident that if he sticks his foot in here, something is going to go wrong. So, because that is my luck right now, I will probably take it apart and redo it. But even with the gauge, like it's still got a good amount of positive ease. So if it's a little too small, then it'll fit them. So yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining and for asking all the questions. And my email address is, or not my email, my website is in the chat. If you have any questions or just want to ask me anything about it, please feel free to reach out through the website or through my Instagram. I'm usually pretty good at getting back to everybody fairly fast. I don't have a show special planned. I did not plan anything for this time round. But thank you, Marianne. But if you send me a message and just let me know, I'll I'll throw something together. I'll think on something for the weekend. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.